Good day! I am Jerson FOU, your PE instructor. So our topic for today is the Movement Education Framework content. The roots of movement education. We use the roots of a tree in this section as an analogy for the most basic concept in movement education. It is a visually appealing aid that will help you use this analogy to explain the movement education framework. The tree is also a simple visual aid to which young children can relate. The movement concept tree is easy to understand, and it also helps you to classify the movement elements and answer the following questions on basic movement concept. First is, what do we move? Where do we move? How do we move? And of course, what are the connections with the whom and with or what we move? To move, we need something to move, and that is our bodies. We need a place to move, and that is space. And of course, we need energy to move, and that is our effort. And we often move in connection with other people, things, and ideas, and that is called in relationship. These four concepts, which is body, space, effort, and relationship, are the essence of the movement education framework. So now, let's demonstrate those concepts, categories, and subcategories of movement education framework.
Hello, good day everyone. I am Jerson FOU, a second-year college student of Bachelor of Physical Education. So for today's video, what I am going to do is to perform the movement education framework. And in this framework, we have four concepts. First is the body, second space, third is effort, and the last one is relationship. But before we start, please allow me to introduce to you first. My friend will serve as my partner or student for this video. So she is Norisa Makalangong. So now let's proceed. So first, let's demonstrate the body. And we have categories and subcategories. First is the body parts. So now let's determine the different parts of our body. So first, this is our head. This is our neck. This is our ears, our mouth, our eyes, and our nose. So this is our shoulders. This is our elbow, our breast, goes like this. This is our breast, our hand. This is our hand. And then fingers. This is our fingers. Then turn up. And then our spine, the center part of our body is our spine. Or in organ, this is the spinal cord. And then this is our back. This is our bottom and our hips. And then our belly and our chest. And of course, our knees. This is our knees. Our ankles, our feet, and of course, our toes. So that's all, guys, the different parts of our body. So now let's perform the second categories and subcategories of the body, which is the body shapes. And in body shapes, those are narrow, wide, round, twisted, symmetrical, and asymmetrical. So now let's perform those body shapes. So first is the narrow. So like this, narrow, and then wide, and then twisted. So in twisted is first is place your both hand in your chest, and then step your feet apart, and then twist your body like this, and 1, 2, and 3. So that is twisted, and symmetrical, like something like this, symmetrical, and then asymmetrical. So that's all the body shapes under the categories of the body. So now let's move on and let's perform the third, which is the actions of the body parts. So So now let's perform the third categories and subcategories of the body, which is the actions of the body parts. So in actions of the body parts, let's perform the weight bearing, receive force or weight, apply force that lead to the actions, and weight transfer. So in actions of the whole body, we have three kinds. First is the non-locomotor movement, locomotor movement, and manipulative. So let's perform first the non-locomotor movement. So in non-locomotor movement, we have stretch, curl, twist, turn, spin, swing, push and pull, rise, sink, gesture, dodge, balance, counterbalance, and counter extension. So now let's perform first the stretch. So in stretching, goes like this, Nora. This is stretch or stretching. And then twist. Twist. Goes like this. That is twist. And then turn. And turn. Just move forward your left side foot. And then turn back. In 1, 2, 3. That is turn. And then spin. In spin, just move your right foot to the left side. And 1, 2, and 3. So that is what we call spin. And then swing. So in swing, we have swing in our head. Swing. And then swing in our foot. That is swing. And then push. So I'll try to push you. This is push. And then just do it for me. Push. And then we have pull. So in pull, this is pull. And then do it for me. That is pull. And then rise. In rise, something like exhale. Rise and then sink. Rise and sink. And then in gestures, we have so many kinds of gestures. One example of gestures is approve sign. This is gestures. And then dodge.
So I am going to hit him with this box.
Dodge. So that is what we call dodge. And then balance. So in balancing, goes like this. Balance or goes like this. Balance. Then counterbalance. So the counterbalance goes like this. So that is what we call counterbalance. So that's all, guys, the actions of the body or the body parts and non-locomotor movement. So now, guys, let's move on and let us perform the second actions or movements of our whole body, which is the locomotor. And under the locomotor, we have the following. First is the walk, second cartwheel, then crawl, bear walk, crab walk, run, leap, hop, skip, jump, galope, slide, and rock and roll. So now, let's perform first the walking or walk. That is the example of walking or walk. So now let's perform the cartwheel. That is cartwheel. So now let's perform the crawl. That is the execution of cartwheel. So now let's perform or crawl rather. So now let's perform the bear walk. That is the example of bear walk. So now let's perform the frog walk. So this is the proper execution of your body, your hands, and also your feet. So let us perform. And 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is the crab walk. So now let's perform running or run. That is running. So now leap. Leap is something like this. That is leaping or leap. Then hop. So that is hop. And now let's perform skipping or skip. That is skipping. And let us perform jumping or jump. That is jumping. So let's perform galoop. So that is galooping or galoop. And then, last but not the least is sliding or slide. So that is sliding. So now guys, that's all the movements or actions under the locomotor. And now, let us perform manipulative. So under the manipulative, we have the following. So by the way guys, manipulative is the last or the third kind of movement or actions of our whole body. So under the manipulative is throw, roll, strike, kick, volley, catch, trap, dribble, and carry. So now let's perform the throw first. So now Ra, can you please show me the throwing as a manipulative movement? So guys, that is the example of throwing or throw. So now let's move on and let's perform the strike. So strike is basically na ginagamit if we are going to perform a baseball. Strike. That is example of strike. So kick. Kick goes like this. That is the example of kick or kicking. So now let's move on and let's perform catch or catching. That is the example of catching or catch. And then carry. That is the example of carry. Whatever na bagay na ginagamit natin or dinadala natin is tinatawag po yan na carry. So guys, that's all the actions under in manipulative move. So let's move on guys, and the next that we are going to perform is, or the third concept of movement education framework is the space. And under the space, we have location, we have direction, level, pathway, plane, and extension. So first is the location. So in location we have self space and general space. So an example of self space is our own room or our own self space. And then the second is the general space. So one example of general space is the classroom, the gymnasium, and many more. So second is the direction. So the direction we have forward, backward, sideways, up and down, clockwise, and counterclockwise. So now let's perform the following directions. So Nora, can you please show me the forward direction? Forward. And then backward. And then sideways. And then counterclockwise and clockwise. Clockwise, then counterclockwise. And then up, and then down. So that's all guys, the following directions. So let's move on and let's proceed to the third categories and subcategories of space, which is the level. And the level we have the low, medium, and high. And then for the number 4, we have pathway. And under the pathway, we have straight, curve, and of course, zigzag. And then for the number 5 is plane. And under the plane, we have sagittal, frontal, and of course, transverse. And then for the last is the extension. And under the extension, we have the small, and of course, large. So that's all guys, the categories and subcategories under the space. So now guys, let's move on to the third category or the third concept of movement education framework, which is effort. And under effort, they have the following categories and subcategories, which is the time, the force, the flow, and focus. And under the time, we have fast, slow, and of course, acceleration. And then, second is the force. And of course, we have hard, and of course, soft. And then, for the third is the flow. And under the flow, we have bound, and of course, tree. And then for the last one is focus. And under focus, we have direct, and of course, indirect. So, that's all guys, the following categories and subcategories under the effort. So now guys, let's move on to the last concept of movement education framework. And that is the relationship. And under the relationship, we have the following categories and subcategories. And that is the people, the position, timing, goal, and environment. So, under the people, we have solo, partner, group to group, and of course, we have scattered. So now, let's move on and discuss the second categories and subcategories of relationship. And that is what we call our position. And under the position are above, below, over, under, inverted, mount and dismount, in front of and behind, beside, alongside, through, surround, around, support and supported, left and lefted, mid, part, near to, and last is far from. And then, the third categories and subcategories of relationship is timing. And under timing, we have the three kinds. That is simultaneous, alternative, and of course, successive. So under the simultaneous, we have mirror, match, contrast, and of course, unison. And then for the second is alternative, and that is take turns. And then for the third is subsystem. And under the subsystem, we have movement sequence, canon, question and answer, act and react, and of course, we have lead and follow. And then for the fourth, categories and subcategories of relationship is goal. And under the goal, we have cooperative, collaborative, and last but not the least is competitive. And then for the last categories and categories of relationship is environment. And under environment is static and dynamic. So that's the end of our discussion or demonstration in our subject, which is the movement education. And I hope na meron pa kayong natutunan ng isa. Once again, I am Gerson F. Huyu, a second-year college student of Bachelor of Physical Education, Section 3. Once again, have a good day. Mabuhay yung STEM and mabuhay tayong lahat.